What's going on, y'all? It's the kid, FortWorthFabian, BigBossFabo. I'm back with a video for you guys, man. I'm reacting to Explore With Us today. As you can see by the title, man, we're reacting to basically some solved cases. Solved cases. You know me and my mysteries, man, and my themes. I appreciate everybody that supports me on this platform. I've been trying to put out content, so you're going to see, stuff roll out. So bear with me. Stay tuned. Stay engaged. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, FortWorthFabian, man. Friday night. If you can join the live stream, join. If you can't, catch this as it uploads on my channel, after we end the live stream, man. Be sure to hit the like button. Donations are open. You can donate. Check everything I got going on. Put recommendations in my comments, man. Like the video. Let me just pin a comment. I always got to pin this comment. And then we can get the video started. People may, pop in here and there. I don't know if people will. We got 3 people in the live stream now, man. So yeah, let's get right into this reaction. For solved cases with the most insane twists you've ever heard.
Woo crew. It's the Raven back to share another strange, shocking, or interesting.
The Raven.
What's up, Woo crew? It's the Raven back to share another strange, shocking, or interesting, but very true story with you. Today, we're going to explore 3 cases with unexpected twists that I bet you can't guess the ending of. In North Epping, New South Wales, Australia, the Lynn family lived relatively comfortably as Min Lynn, the family's patriarch, was a news. The Lynn family lived relatively comfortably as Min Lynn, the family's patriarch, was a news agency proprietor and ran a family-owned news agency. With his wife Yoon Lynn, the family had 3 children: 9-year-old Terry, 12-year-old Henry, and 15-year-old June Brenda Lynn. Also at the home was Yoon's sister Irene Lynn. The family was clearly close, as they lived together and worked together. The news agency even purportedly employed Min Lynn's sister Kathy. Though everything appeared to be going well for the Lynn family, that was about to take a gruesome turn.
Man, they always got to paint a pretty and a beautiful picture for these gruesome tales or these crazy stories, things that end up happening, man. It's like the unexpected happens in the places you would least likely expect it to happen.
On the morning of July 18th, 2009, Kathy and her husband, Leon Ben Robert Shia, went to the newspaper agency, only to find it closed. This was highly unusual, as the Lynns were always punctual and took their business seriously, as it supported their entire family. Concerned, Kathy and Robert went to the Lynn house to see if they could track down Min and Yoon. What they found would haunt them for years, in more ways than one. Unnervingly, they found the front door to the Lynn family's house open. Going upstairs, the 2 noticed speckles of what looked like blood on the walls and in the hall between the bedrooms. As they looked closer, they found that the bedrooms were covered in blood spatter from the floors all the way to the ceilings. A terrified Kathy called for the police, barely able to make out the words, "I think someone murdered my brother's family." But the nightmare only got worse. They then saw the bodies, or rather, what remained of the bodies. The faces of the victims were so marred that when the police and paramedics arrived at the scene, forensic analysis had to be used to identify each of the victims.
No way.
Eventually, it was determined that the victims were Min, Yoon, Terry, Henry, and Irene. All 5 had been bludgeoned with a hammer, though 4 had also been strangled. The only one to survive was Brenda, but she hadn't been home at the time of the slip.
The one person that lives is always the prime suspect in a family's case, especially if you're like of age, not like an infant or something like that. That's crazy because there's one person that's alive and she was supposedly not home, at the time of the slaying. It's like, I already got a feeling that she was involved,
Playing. She had been on a school trip and this likely saved her life.
Did she set it up,
Horribly, the news of the gruesome murder broke before Brenda was contacted, and she learned about the deaths of her entire family through a news article.
She learned about the whole entire death through a news article. Okay, maybe she wasn't in on it. That's crazy.
As an investigation began, Kathy and Robert stepped in to take over the Lynn's newspaper agency business. As well, Brenda, who was completely alone in the world now, was placed into their custody. Robert was noted to be especially eager to gain custody of Brenda in order to care for her after the loss of her family. In fact, just hours after the bodies were discovered, Robert had offered to adopt Brenda. For a month, there were no leads into the identity of the Lynn family's killer, but evidence was starting to pile up. The house showed no evidence of a break-in, which police believed indicated that the killer had a key. As well, nothing in the house had been broken or stolen, which meant that the motive for entering the house was likely only to kill the Lynn family. There were 24
I know who did it.
bloody footprints, which told investigators that they were looking for one killer, and they knew that the killer had worn Asics sneakers. But here's the really interesting twist in this case. The forensic evidence, specifically the bloody footprints, indicated that the killer never entered Brenda's room. But why not? If the entire family had been killed, certainly the killer would have looked for Brenda in order to make her a victim as well. But the fact that Brenda's room was never entered indicated something important. The killer knew she wasn't home. This fact seriously narrowed down the possible suspects. Another red flag soon caught the attention of investigators, and I have to be honest, hearing this one really gave me the chills. When they listened back...
Who y'all think did it thus far, man? Let me know who y'all think is associated with the crime. Obviously, it's fairly odd that, what was it, a family member that wanted to adopt Brenda so quickly? You know, we don't have too many suspects on the table, but let's hear this new fact that they're about to reveal, though.
To Kathy's initial phone call to police, they took the time to translate something she'd been yelling frantically to Robert in Cantonese. Well, it turns out she had been desperately pleading with him not to leave her alone in the house. But oddly enough, her husband did exit the home, not seeming to have a single worry about whether or not the killer could still be in the home with his helpless wife. Things were starting to come together. What if Robert had known Kathy would be perfectly safe, because the only merciless killer around was himself? Of course, it was just a theory at that point, and not enough concrete evidence to make a case. But when officials planted a pinhole camera inside Robert's home, and he was observed cutting up an Asics shoebox and flushing the pieces down a toilet, suspicion quickly turned on him.
They bugged him.
Forensic investigators examined a stain found in the garage of Robert's house, and it was uncovered that it contained DNA from 4 of the 5 Lynn family victims.
This guy.
Robert was arrested soon after this shocking discovery. But what motive could have driven Robert to kill his wife's entire family so brutally? Well, prosecutors alleged that one of Robert's main motivations was Brenda. That's right, Robert was allegedly attracted to his young niece. It was then Brenda reportedly told investigators that her Uncle Robert had been allegedly assaulting her before the murder of her family, and that it had only continued after she moved into his home under his custody. During trial, a picture was painted of a man who, in his need to possess his niece, was driven to kill an entire family.
That's some weirdo stuff, bro. So he was obsessed with his niece. So he killed his niece's family. It was his sister's family in order to get closer and continue assaulting his niece. That's some weirdo. Dang, bro. That's crazy. I knew it was him, though.
Though this is clearly the kind of case that makes headlines, it wasn't so cut and dry in reality. After 2 abandoned trials, and a 3rd trial that ended in a hung jury, it was the 4th jury that found Robert guilty in 2017.
Come on, bro.
Robert still maintains that he is innocent of any crime.
Cap.
I uncovered today's next case during my research into...
That's a crazy case. That's the first time I heard of that one, man. Let me know y'all's thoughts. Let me know y'all's thoughts in the chat. We got 5 people watching. We did have 7 people prior, man. But hit the like button for me. Comment down below. Where's everybody tuning in from? Let me know where you're tuning in from.
To the Lynn family murders, and though they both feature family tragedy, the twists couldn't be more different. Where the Lynn family was discovered almost immediately, the fate of the McStay family was a mystery. Well, almost. The McStay family lived in Fallbrook, northern San Diego, and was made up of 40-year-old Joseph McStay, his wife, 43-year-old Summer McStay, and the couple's 2 preschool sons, 4-year-old Gianni and 3-year-old Joey Jr. Joseph worked as an entrepreneur who sold indoor water fountains. The family was known for being characteristically happy and successful. However, this wouldn't last. By mid-February 2010, it became glaringly clear that something was wrong with the McStay family. None of the family members had been heard from since the 4th, which was highly unusual. When the house was investigated, food was discovered on the counters just left where it had been dropped, and it was now rotten. The treasured family dogs were found left outside in the cold, something completely unusual for the family who loved the animals to have carelessly done. Yet despite these concerning clues, there was no sign of forced entry at all.
Whenever you see no sign of forced entry, someone in the family or someone in the midst of the inner circle usually did it, bro. We got Sherry Kendall who left a comment in the chat, man. I appreciate that, Sherry. Hey there, I'm thinking it might be the bloke who took her into care for her. Referring to the first case. Very gruesome deaths of temperature. Poor victims, for sure. Gruesome deaths. Man, some people just really tormented or demented up here just to be able to inflict that type of harm upon another human being.
The house was locked, besides a small window. There was no evidence of a struggle and not even a trace of violence. As well, because there was no suspicious activity on their credit cards, it ruled out the possibility of a robbery. What there was evidence of, though, was that the family had left the house in a hurry, and of their own free will. As a search began for the McStay family, their Isuzu Trooper was soon found where it had been abandoned in San Ysidro, near the U.S.-Mexico border. A theory arose to explain the family's absence, that they had intentionally gone over the border, but once there, they met a tragic but unknown fate. This theory made sense, because investigators couldn't understand how a family with no known enemies, and who were widely regarded as loving, could have met a more sinister end. However, family members disagreed that they would have left without telling anyone. The case went cold, and the McStay family simply vanished, never to be found. Answers wouldn't come for close to 4 years. It wasn't until November 2013 when this case had its first twist. A dirt biker riding through the desert outside Victorville made a grim discovery. Peeking out of the sand was something white, almost like a stone. When the dirt biker came closer, they realized that it wasn't a stone at all, but a skull.
It wasn't a stone at all, but a skull, man. Quick little ad. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in this evening. Like the video if you haven't already. We've got 6 people in the live stream, man. Let's get back to it. Oh, really quickly. Sherry says, made some spelling mistakes, was meant to say them poor victims. Well, yep. Thought that was the bloke that did it. Tuning in from New Zealand. Shout out to New Zealand, man. I appreciate y'all.
Horrifically, the skull was too small to belong to an adult and had to have been a child's. When investigators came to have a look, they found that the skull wasn't alone. They uncovered a shallow grave filled with a total of 4 bodies, 2 adults and 2 small children. It was the McStay family. But the bodies weren't alone. Also tucked within the grave was a sledgehammer. The McStay family had been beaten to death. Joseph was found with an electrical cord wrapped around his neck.
Who did it?
While Gianni bore the evidence of at least 7 blows to his skull. DNA that didn't belong to a McStay family member was soon found on the steering wheel and shift gear of the car, along with a cell phone pinged near the gravesite a few days after the McStays had gone missing. Both belonged to Charles Chase Merritt. Looking back, investigators realized that when Merritt, a welder, was interviewed about the McStays just 2 weeks after their disappearance, he had continued to use past tense, referring to Joseph by saying he was my best friend. Merritt had been Joseph's business partner, but there was evidence that before his death, Joseph had begun to sideline Merritt. Investigators believe that Merritt had allegedly been stealing from the McStays company, and that he owed Joseph almost $43,000. But what doesn't make sense is how Merritt could have killed the entire McStay family without any evidence of a struggle.
Motive.
Had they gone willingly to their deaths? At his trial, Merritt broke down in tears and professed his innocence, saying, "I don't deserve this. I did not do this." In 2020, nearly a decade after the McStay family vanished and was brutally killed.
Some people just be blatantly lying, bro. Blatantly capping. It's like, come on, dog. Like, you putting on a whole show, but inside, you know you really committed a murder. You really killed these folks. And you really willing to just lie in front of everybody. Like, come on, man. Some people are just evil. Like, come on, dog. Is you delusional or what? You did it.
Merritt was found guilty of 4 counts of murder. He was sentenced to life in prison for killing Joseph, but for Summer and the 2 children's murders, he was sentenced to death. I may have saved the story with the most unexpected twists for last. In 1986, 15-year-old Annie Andrews, who lived in Pepperell, Massachusetts, started receiving phone calls from a stranger. She wasn't particularly concerned, because the stranger on the other end was a boy around her age named Daniel. Annie, as a trusting young girl, didn't question the calls as much as she probably should have. Instead, she assumed that a friend must have given Daniel her number. Daniel called frequently to talk, but as Annie couldn't see him, she had to rely on his description of himself to imagine what he was like. Daniel told Annie that he was a tall, blonde, good-looking, and athletic guy.
Come on, man. He just finessed you so easy. Really? Ladies, really? Are they falling for that nowadays? Come on, man.
So when he asked her on a date, Annie agreed. You may be guessing that this case ends with Annie's tragic demise, as many of these sad stories go. But you would be very wrong. The boy who met Annie for the date was not at all who she was expecting. The boy who introduced himself as Danny wasn't tall, instead was about 5'8" and thin, and he wasn't blonde. Instead, he had greasy dark hair and thick, untamed eyebrows. Daniel was awkward and had a noticeable lack of hygiene, none of which was helped by the fact that he had lied to Annie. Still, they went on the date and attended a local fair. It was while walking along the fairgrounds among the flashing lights and the smell of greasy food that Annie mentioned that her mother had died of cancer. Hearing this, Daniel's eyes appeared to light up, and he became incredibly interested, not in comforting the grieving girl as one would imagine, but instead incessantly asking her invasive questions about the death. He mostly wanted to know how much Annie's mother had suffered. Annie, disturbed by this and upset that Daniel had lied to her about who he was, declined to go on a second date with him. And that's where the story should have ended. But it didn't. Annie went home to her father Brian and her younger sister Jessica, who was 8 at the time. It was soon after her date with Daniel that Annie and Jessica both started to notice strange things happening around the house. Late at night, the 2 girls would hear tapping on the walls. You can't blame the girls, who had just lost their mother, for considering that the noises could be coming from a ghost.
That's messed up, bro. We already know who's making the noises, but he was willing to take it that far.
This wasn't helped by the fact that Brian, as a suddenly single parent, had to work more to support the family.
So he went home?
Frequently out of the house, leaving the girls alone.
Come on,
Some stories say that the girls held a seance to conjure the spirit of their mother, but this has never been verified.
Whoa, why is it taking all these twists and turns, bro? Like, what is going on right now? A seance? So they was just attracting evil, spirit or not, to the house. Like, I don't know, that's bad energy in my book.
The strange tapping continued. It woke them in the middle of the night, and soon the girls were hardly sleeping at all. Then things started to move around the house. Food would vanish from counters within minutes of being put there.
Bro, what's happening?
They told their father it was a ghost. He was unconvinced. But then the writing started. One night while the girls were alone, they reportedly heard the tapping again, this time from below. The girls crept downstairs and, in the basement, found something scrawled on the wall. The message reportedly read, "I'm in your room, come and find me." It looked to be written in blood. This understandably freaked them out. 2 weeks later, the next message was written in Annie's bedroom. "I'm back. Find me if you can." Terrified that they were being haunted, the girls called and told their father. Though he didn't quite believe them, he came home to put their fears to rest. As he entered Annie's bedroom, Brian made a shocking discovery. Standing in his daughter's room was someone with long blonde hair, wearing a dress that had belonged to his deceased wife. When the person turned, he realized, shockingly, that it was a young man, wearing a wig and makeup and holding a hatchet. He attempted to attack Brian, but...
Is I'm dreaming right now, bro? Is this real? Whoa. This is like some horror movie type scenario. Like, the plot thickens. Like, this is deep. Like, homie went this far just to scare a girl who turned him down on a date. Like, and he was living. What's that term to where you, they call it like frogging. This is like an official term to where someone, like, when they break into your house or they sneak into your house and they actually live and they inhabit your house without unknowingly, while you have no clue. So he was living there doing all this weirdo stuff. For what, though? Why he take it that far?
But he managed to fight him off, and of course, call the police.
Why did he take it that far?
Investigators found the boy in the Andrews house, hiding within the crawl space. It became abundantly clear that the boy had been living in the walls of the house for months. He was arrested and charged with a variety of crimes. The young man was allegedly 17-year-old Daniel LaPlante. To be clear, the exact details of this story have become a little less clear with how many times it has been retold and dramatized over the years.
No way.
For instance, in some versions, people say that the intruder was actually dressed as a Native American instead of a woman.
Bro.
Either way, as the facts aren't 100% clear at this time, please be aware that these are merely allegations. Daniel had allegedly been the ghost harassing Annie for months after she had rejected him, which might be one of the more extreme reactions to being rejected that I've ever heard of.
That's what I'm saying, bro. This is Explore With Us reaction, man. We got about, I think, a few minutes left in this video. Be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, man. I do a lot of these live streams, so tune in. I used to do them nightly. I should be doing them every Friday night, so I might start getting back into the rhythm, but let's end the video out.
Apparently, this wasn't all that unusual. Well, it was, but not for Daniel. You see, before he began harassing the Andrews, he had an alleged history of breaking into people's houses and stealing. But reportedly, he also immensely enjoyed moving things around in people's homes to let them know that he had been there, without it being obvious. After being arrested, Daniel stayed at a juvenile's facility for about a year before he was released. It was only a month before he went back to his old ways, though this time he went even further. He broke into his neighbor's home where he found and allegedly stole 2 handguns. Okay, so while the details are a little fuzzy on Daniel's alleged time living in the walls,
he's a young flocker.
He was about to do something far more dark and insidious.
Mr. Kick, though.
And in this case, the facts are crystal clear.
Bruh.
Spurred by his first crime since being set free, Daniel, now armed, decided to enter someone else's home uninvited. A half-mile from his house, he made his way into the home of 33-year-old Priscilla Gustafson, a pregnant church nursery school teacher. At the time, she was home alone with her 2 children, 7-year-old Abigail and 5-year-old William. Daniel attacked Priscilla and assaulted her before allegedly shooting her multiple times at point-blank range.
Bro.
He purportedly left her laying face down on her bed, with her pillows covered in blood. Daniel proceeded to attack and drown the 2 children, leaving each of them in separate bathrooms. As a manhunt ensued to find the Gustafson's killer, Daniel's reign of terror continued. While on the run, Daniel went a few towns over from Townsend and allegedly kidnapped a woman at gunpoint, forcing her to drive him around in a Volkswagen van. But the lucky woman...
He went on a spree. He said, bro, whoa.
...managed to escape on foot and told the police of the incident. Police attention turned to Daniel LaPlante. After days of searching, they found him in one of the most unlikely places. Not the walls of someone's house, as you may suspect, but a dumpster at a lumber yard. Though he was arrested without incident, he disturbed the arresting officers by allegedly laughing maniacally all the while.
Weird.
At a trial in 1988, Daniel LaPlante was convicted of the triple murder and given 3 life sentences. Is it really a big shock that the guy who lived in someone's walls later became a murderer? Maybe not. I mean, if anyone is going to follow that trajectory, it's going to be the guy who lived in someone's walls.
He kind of got a point, man. He kind of got a point. We ain't trying to watch no Fresh and Fit. But, hey, man. Man. That was what? Soft cases with the most insane twist from Explore With Us, man. Let me know y'all's thoughts on that one in the chat down below. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in, who's rocking. Sherry Kendall, very satanic. Well, if people are going to dabble in the spirit world, they better get ready to know how to get rid of the evil spirits. Oh, geez. Well, now it's the young fellow. Crazy, huh? Yeah, Buddy was wild. He was reckless, and he was on something. He was just demented, tormented. I don't know what was wrong with him. But hey, we got 8 people in the live stream. Diaquita Kita, hello everybody. Shout out to people who tuned in. This is a fairly short live stream. We've been live for 27 minutes, man. I appreciate everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. Keep recommending content. Put it down in the comment section below if you got a video you want to see. Peace, love, prosperity, man. We'll catch you guys in the next video. We out of here, man.